fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Why the news is wrong about Christianity. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, Like Diamonds, back again, Salt Strong Unchurched. Not sure if you saw this in some type of news headline, but the Pew Research, which is the big group that does research on all kinds of things, including religion, just had a new report. The last one they did was 2017, I believe, and this one just came out about Christianity and just belief in God in general. And we're at all-time lows. So that's, kind of fact number one. All-time lows in terms of people who call themselves Christians and even who believe in a God and believe that God is real. And then, a couple of the headlines run mostly by non-Christian people who want to spread this type of thought processes. The headline was that in the next 20 to 50 years, depending on how fast this may or may not, snowball down and through the next generation, it's basically, predicting that Christianity won't be the number one religion in America at some point in the next, 20 to 50 years once again. And that was really the headline to get people to click on it, which I did. I saw it on Facebook and ended up reading it. And, the headline, obviously, it alerts you like, holy smokes. And a lot of people just, oh, cool. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Maybe I shouldn't be a Christian. I mean, it's sad how much we are social animals and kind of tend to do what other people are doing. And there's people on the fence who read that headline and don't read the rest of it and or don't know anything about Christianity and or don't know the history of what God has done to every civilization and every type of region and every country. When they turn their back on him, then they might just feel, oh, yeah, I guess everyone else is not believing in God anymore. I will do the same, which I believe is quite dangerous. So here's a couple of things that we probably should address first. In this study, it broke it down by age, it broke it down by gender, and it broke it down by what they believe politically. Not necessarily Republican, Democrat, although that was in there. It was more about conservative versus liberal. And as you can probably guess, the number one group that basically brought this average down to an all-time low was very young, 20-something-year-olds, unmarried, very, very liberal. And they were at like all-time lows. Almost scary of that they do not believe in any God, et cetera. So it is 100%, not 100%, but it is mostly the whole thing that is bringing this down are very young, liberal, basically students and young adults that have, for whatever reason, decided, I don't believe in a God. And here's why I think that's okay. I'm looking back when I was in my 20s, I believed in a God. Certainly, I would still call myself a Christian had I been, in some type of survey like this. But at the time, I'm just being very transparent. I was not going to church. I was not practicing Christianity in my acts and in the way I behaved during the weekends and going out to bars and trying to meet girls and doing stuff that a lot of us probably did in college. And it wasn't until, for me, it was the cancer that really opened up my eyes. And I had a, pretty magical experience there with God. I mean, if you haven't heard that story, it's, oh my goodness, it is wild. I still get goosebumps and many times teary-eyed just talking about it. But I was in the hospital about to get my first surgery there for my skin cancer, for the melanoma. And this was the beginning of stage 2 cancer. This is not just like cutting out something that they'd already done that part and realized that it had been spreading through my arm. And so the next step was getting it all out of my arm in a surgery. And all of a sudden the doctor, who was not even the surgeon, this is the guy who was, coming in and putting some type of weird liquid in my body so they can kind of watch where it goes through my bloodstream. And he's leaving the room, and I'm in a little wheelchair, and I got my little gown on, and my dad's in there with me, and he stops at the door, and I'm kind of like, all right, what's he doing? And he turns around and he just says, hey, I feel like I'm being called to pray over you right now. Is that okay? And once again, I don't know who this guy is. We had nothing but small talk. He did not know if I literally could have had him fired if I was not a Christian. You're not allowed to do that in public hospitals, and so this guy took a massive risk, and literally he just froze at the door and turned around and said, I feel like I'm being called to pray over you. And he literally touched my arm. I don't remember what he said. I was crying like crazy. My dad's crying. It was, oh, wow. I said, I get teary-eyed and just kind of emotional thinking about it. But there was something it was the first time I would say I felt, the Holy Spirit in my body. I mean, when this doctor touched my arm, and he started praying as he touched my arm, I felt something going through me. It was unexplainable. I don't expect you to believe me or understand it if you've never been there before. But my dad, who was right next to me, he felt the same thing. He was just like, that was crazy. After we finally, used a whole thing of Kleenex tissues to wipe all the tears off my face and his face, it was wild. And at that point, I knew I was healed. I literally was like, I was so anxious about that surgery and potentially going through chemo and all the stuff that was going to happen next. And I was like, I'm healed. And I was. They found no more. They got all the cancer out that day. And ever since then, I've been cancer free, and it was really, really wild. And so for me, that was, as you can imagine, a pretty big turning point where we're now, I want to be all in. I'm fully invested in this belief in God thing. That was, a pretty big moment in my life. And where I'm going with this is, not everyone has that experience, but it also seems to be, according to Pew, and even just according to probably what you've seen in real life, as you get older and have kids and mature a little bit, and I guess in some ways even get closer and closer to death. Obviously, the older you get, we're all going to pass away at some point. The older we start getting to them asking those questions, hey, what happens if there is a God? What happens if this heaven thing is real? What happens if the Bible is real? And if I've been, saying the opposite this whole time, well, what if I'm not going to heaven? And you start having some different conversations as you continue to get older. And so right now, we happen to have, the baby boomer, which was the biggest generation. And, these are, meaning I'm a kid of a baby boomer. And then we have this group right below me. So I'm 43 years old, and we have all these 20 and 30-year-olds, which is still kind of the tail end of the younger baby boomer kids. And there's a ton of them. I mean, it's a massive, massive, massive generation, this millennial generation. It's huge. And so there are more of them. We now have more, very liberal teachers and a lot of liberal colleges. And so it should not come as a shock. You also have a lot of big news agencies that are run, by non-Christians and don't want the word to get out that Christianity is good or rising. And they try to do everything to ensure that it doesn't grow. So none of it was shocking to me. And I do believe is that this younger generation gets older. A lot of them, do kind of have an awakening, if you will, and start, just questioning and asking, maybe God is real. What if all this stuff is real? And maybe if I've been miserable and just have not felt fulfilled in life, maybe I want to try this stuff out. And I've seen that with many of my friends now in their 40s. That would have not said they were Christians in college. I had quite a few of them that now are in that mix of, hey, you know what? I'm starting to go to church. I'm starting to realize that it's important for my kids to have an understanding of all this, and it's been really, really interesting to see that kind of play out. So that's kind of number one, just looking at the actual stats. Not just reading the alarming headline of looking at the stats. Really, the whole decline is in this super young, liberal, 20 to 30 range is really what has caused it. So all that being said, the next part of it is I've talked about in a prior podcast is, I've been reading the Bible though every year now for the last couple of years, and it's the 1-a-day Bible where you basically read for about 12 to 15 minutes a day, and if you do that every day for the whole year, and it's broken out by 365 days, then you read the whole Bible. And there's just case study after case study after case study where God has come into a region or a country, and as soon as a vast majority of the people have turned their back on him, right? I mean, starting with Noah, right? And the ark, I mean, you had what at least the Bible describes as a society that was not God-fearing, was, essentially atheist and doing evil things and worshiping idols. And, guess what happened, right? I mean, literally eliminated all of them. But there's just been so many of these stories. It's a theme that continues over and over again, that a lot of these places start off with good, meaning in terms of they have good rulers and leaders, and they're putting God first, and all of a sudden a bad one comes in, and slowly but surely this civilization or country goes on the decline and starts worshiping idols and taking God out of their lives, etc. And then God comes and basically destroys them, or gives the authority or power to some army or some other group to come in and literally just start wiping people out. I mean, it's crazy. If you read the Bible, you just be shocked at how many times this just keeps happening over and over again. And I'm not suggesting that all these people are just going to be wiped out. It might happen. I don't know. But it is interesting, even if you look in this country, that we have these resets every 80 to 100 years. And for the most part, the majority of people alive today, right? I'm starting at 1-year-olds all the way up to 100-year-olds. The vast majority, which the vast majority is 50 and below now, in terms of the amount of people. The vast majority have never lived through a real war, right? They've never really seen tough times, right? Yeah, there's been some little recessions and stuff, but I'm talking about Great Depression, right? Or going back prior to that, when you start talking about things like the Civil War, right? And the Revolutionary War, we're talking about massive shifts and change and people dying at a rate that we can't even really comprehend. And so if you really think about it, most of us alive have never been through a tough time. Yeah, we've seen a couple little wars, Gulf War, and obviously there's baby boomers who lived through Vietnam, but nothing like what happened in World War I and World War II and the Great Depression in particular, and then going back to Civil War. So if you look at it, it's about every 82 to 100 years, you have some big event, and it usually right after that causes some type of political reformation where people are getting reformed and there's more unity, right? I mean, we saw it even with 9/11. That was a quick one. And obviously, I'm not saying it wasn't bad, but compared to like Great Depression, which lasted many years and impacted everyone. I mean, 9/11 was a pretty quick thing, but even that, I mean, we saw for one of the first times in many decades, the country came together. I mean, everyone was saluting the flag and doing everything they could to support the families that were impacted by that horrible, tragic event. And so I'm just saying, if history repeats itself for now the 4th time in our country, there will be some type of, event and probably another, Christianity Reformation, which is really how our country was started. In God we trust, right? And now we're taking God out of the schools. That was the one thing that was most important to our founders, and really for the first 100 years of our country. I mean, even all the first colleges were started as Christian colleges to teach good morals, right? And now we've taken all of this stuff out of it, and we've replaced a lot of the leaders in our schools and in our education system to be able to, not talk anything about Christianity and religion, or even good morals these days. In fact, it's, sometimes some pretty horrible things are being taught in there, and some pretty confusing things. if you had grown up in a Christian family and all of a sudden go to a school where you have a professor who is just crazy liberal and crazy atheist, which there's more and more of those than any time in our society in terms of America. There's more and more of those professors who are teaching these young 20-year-olds. Once again, I'm not shocked that the numbers came out the way they did. So all we can do as Christians, if you're listening to this, I assume you are one or curious, maybe on the fence, is just to be the absolute best version of ourselves, to really live the life of a follower of Christ, not just say we're Christians, right? I think it was Gandhi who had that quote that said, I like Jesus. He actually, he said something, I like Jesus. I just don't like how his followers act, right? And that's a shame, right? And that's, I think a lot of people are in that same mindset is, I like who this Jesus guy is and what he stands for. And it sounds like he did some pretty awesome stuff, but they're around some Christians who could be hypocritical and sometimes even just downright mean and evil. And that, leaves a lasting impression on some people. So I think for us, we need to be the best versions of ourselves as Christians, to just continually be loving and not argumentative about things that we don't need to be arguing about. It pains me to see the conversations that happen online and where so-called Christians are just lashing out and honestly just embarrassing themselves and in Christianity in general. Putting myself in the other person's shoes, other side shoes, and reading just comments that I see on a daily basis from so-called Christians, I wouldn't want to become one either, right? If I was on the other side, like, man, these people are evil and mean and saying really bad stuff. And there's a better way to do it. I mean, going back to how Jesus did it. He didn't have Christianity back then, right? I mean, he started with just a handful of people and was able to get, now almost the big chunk of the world to follow him and to, right? Think about that. He had everything going against him, no one believing him in the beginning, and he didn't do it by calling people idiots and bashing them. No, he did it through parables and teaching and loving on people unconditionally. And obviously he had the work of some pretty cool miracles, but he never went out there and just bashed people and talked the way that a lot of people are talking online to non-Christians. It's just not the way to do it. So I would urge you, as I talked about in I guess it was 2 podcasts ago, the whole hiding versus, proving. And many times when you kind of feel insecure, you just tend to lash out and get angry and frustrated. And I would just urge you to take a breather when you feel that happening. Yes, there's many comments and stuff that I wanted to respond to, and I have to take a breather. I'm like, you know what? By me responding with what I want to say, is this going to really help or hurt the situation? Is this going to bring that person closer to Christ? Is what I want to say, right? Which could, be kind of as hard hitting as they are, is what I want to say. Is it really, really going to be loving? Is it really going to be something that Jesus would, like, if Jesus was right there behind you looking over your shoulder, would he be like, all right, great job, Joe? Or would he say, man, you handled that really, really poorly? And that's a good filter, right? I try to do that a lot. I've almost just close my eyes and envision Jesus is there. And all right, is he proud of my actions? Is he proud of what I'm doing and what I'm saying? If I'm going to be, right, a follower of him and representing him, or is he like, oh man, like you really lost your cool in that one. And yeah, you probably should not have said that. There's 15 other things that you could have said that would have been better. So try it out yourself. Like I said, there is going to be some sort of reformation at some point, a revival, whatever you want to call it. Who knows what the event or events will be, but history has proven time and time again it does go in cycles. And I would venture to guess in the next couple of years there will be some type of event or something that opens up a lot of people's eyes. So I will, in the meantime, continue to be praying, continue to do my own thing. It's not it's not a fear-based thing, right? I mean, anything that you go through in life, especially even the bad stuff, does make you stronger. No one wants it, but it always makes us stronger. So anyhow, I'd love your feedback on this one. If you guys have any other thoughts, this is just something hit me this morning to record. It was on my heart this morning, and especially after I saw that headline about, Christianity will, basically just be a small minority in the next 30, 40 years. I disagree. I don't think that's true at all. And there's been people who have been saying that for a long time. Right now, there's obviously one small group or it's a big group of people, but it's one small in terms of a segment that is really just, messing up those numbers, if you will. And I do believe over time, a lot of them will shift and have their eyes open. So just be praying for them and pray for all your loved ones, and just continue to go out there and love and do as Jesus would do, and be great leaders and parents and siblings, etc. And as I said, I'd love to hear from you guys. My email, Joe, Joe, @saltstrong.com. Talk to you on the next episode.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.